Crocodiles are built like weapons, rows of interlocking teeth, skin plated with bony armor, and a jaw that closes with enough force to shatter the leg bone of a full-grown cow. They rule the rivers and flooded grasslands of South America without meaningful opposition. And yet, there is one predator that hunts them deliberately, one that tracks them, studies their patterns, and has figured out exactly where to put its teeth to shut a crocodile's brain off like a switch. The jaguar, third largest cat on Earth, the most powerful pound for pound of any big cat alive, and the only predator in this hemisphere willing to drag a crocodilian out of its own water. But being the strongest does not make the life easy. To see what his life actually looks like, we follow one dominant male through his territory and discover that even the king of this jungle spends most of his days losing. If you're hooked on the raw, unedited survival rules of the wild, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of the planet's ultimate tactical hunts. A shadow moves along the bank, movements barely noticeable. Each step is placed with the kind of deliberate patience that takes years to develop, weight shifting forward so slowly that the grass doesn't bend until it has to. On the sun-warmed mud ahead, a caiman lies stretched out, eyes half closed, soaking up the midday heat. It has no idea it is being watched. The jaguar drops lower. He reads the distance, calculates the angle, and goes for his prey. At the absolute last millisecond, the caiman feels the air shift and whips its heavy tail to dive. Not fast enough to escape cleanly, fast enough to survive. The jaguar's jaws slam shut on nothing but mud and water. Just like that, the meal escapes. That's how it usually goes. Scientific field studies tracking jaguar hunts have found that fewer than half of all ambush attempts succeed. He will need to keep moving. He is the third biggest cat on the planet, outweighed only by lions and tigers. But weight rankings don't capture what makes him different. Higher than lions, higher than tigers. It is a jaw built not just for killing, but for killing things that are very hard to kill. And still, the hunt fails more than it works. He moves on. His home range covers more than 100 square kilometers of the Brazilian Pantanal, the largest tropical wetland on Earth, stretching across western Brazil and spilling into Bolivia and Paraguay. It covers somewhere between 140,000 and 195,000 square kilometers, depending on the flood season. Bigger than England and Wales combined, it shifts between rivers, flooded lakes, dense gallery forest, and vast open grassland depending on the season. GPS tracking studies show that a single dominant male in this region patrols several thousand acres of this landscape in a single week. He does it alone. His territory overlaps with several females. It may overlap with other males too, but the cats almost never physically meet. They know each other by scent and rearrange their schedules accordingly to avoid conflict. The beaches are his highways. They are wide, flat, and open for easy walking and good visibility, and close enough to thick vegetation that he can disappear in 2 steps if he needs to. He uses them the way we use roads, with one difference. His eyes are always scanning, ears rotating independently and catching frequencies we'd never hear. He picks up something, white-lipped peccaries. They look like pigs, but they're not. They're actually more closely related to hippos and whales, distant cousins to the even-toed ungulates. They travel in herds that can exceed 100 animals, a tight, snorting, mutually protective unit with a collective alarm system and no particular reluctance to mob a predator that gets too close. He follows the scent trail to a wallow, a mud depression packed with the mineral smell of dozens of warm bodies. They are close. His legs are shorter and heavier than almost any other big cat, built for tree climbing and explosive short bursts rather than long pursuit. He will never run prey down the way a lion or cheetah does, and he doesn't try. Instead, he has retractable claws kept needle-sharp inside soft pads, but it also means his feet are nearly silent on hard ground. He moves through the undergrowth, and the peccaries have no idea he's close. Very close. But the forest has many eyes. High above in the branches, a troop of monkeys spots the cat's coat. They erupt into a chorus of frantic, piercing alarm calls, sending the whole herd scattering. Another failed attempt. The king doesn't always eat like one. Time for a nap. Like every large predator operating at this level of effort, he runs a tight energy budget. A failed ambush burns almost as much as a successful one, and he cannot afford to run a deficit for long. He finds a shaded bank and stretches out. He almost gets comfortable, but finding peace in a bustling rainforest is easier said than done. As the coati troop moves along, tearing into rotten logs and plucking wild fruits, his nose fills in the details before his eyes can. A female. She's on the opposite bank. He could swim across without trouble, seeing as jaguars are strong swimmers and cross wide channels without hesitation. But there is no point. Moving alongside her is a small spotted shape copying her every step. She has a cub. Adult jaguars interact with their own kind only when there is a realistic opportunity to breed. This female will be raising that cub for another 2 years, defending it aggressively from any outside male, including him. He leaves them alone. A jaguar's life comes down to 3 things: eat, sleep, and sire the next generation. His ears, which rotate independently like satellite dishes, pick up something from roughly half a kilometer away. A rough, low vocalization, irregular in rhythm, something like the sound a handsaw makes being pulled backwards through damp wood. The mating call of a female in estrus. A mating call changes everything. The sound is, for this cat, functionally irresistible. Driven by pure instinct, the male moves toward the sound. But something is off. The call is too mechanical, repeating from the exact same spot without pause. But instinct is louder than suspicion. He steps into a clearing and a foot snare closes around his leg. It is a trap. Biologists and conservationists have set up an automated speaker, a satellite radio collar fitted around his neck, a GPS unit encased within, designed with bolts that will corrode and release the collar on their own within a few months. Then they retreat to the tree line as he comes around. When the dazed male finally stumbles back to his feet, the humans are gone. He shakes his heavy head, confused by the strange, unnatural weight around his throat, and makes for a dense cover. Over the next few weeks, he grows accustomed to the silent appendage, completely unaware that his every movement is being transmitted to a computer screen miles away. For the next several weeks, he knows he's being followed. He never fully relaxes, but gradually, predictably, he stops reacting. They keep their distance, and he learns they're harmless. The monitoring fades into the background noise of his territory, and life returns to its normal rhythm. He will never see his children. She will raise the litter alone, typically 2 cubs, sometimes 4, through a 100-day gestation, and then another 2 years of training them to survive. He goes back to his territory. Meanwhile, the Pantanal keeps turning. While he was occupied, the dry season had reached its peak, causing the water levels to drop to drastic lows. Massive rivers shrink into isolated, muddy pools, trapping millions of fish in claustrophobic, shrinking basins. It is a windfall for the wetlands' wading birds and the local caiman population, and they have both noticed. The caimans have found the pools. Reptiles are often written off as primitive and slow. Still, the Jaguar caiman, the dominant crocodilian of the Pantanal, with an estimated population of 10 million animals in this region alone, can display a level of coordinated behavior that challenges that assumption. As the sun bakes the landscape, the dissolved oxygen levels in the remaining water drop to lethal minimums, forcing the local fish, primarily silver scale pacu and razor-toothed piranhas, to break the surface to breathe. Groups move together through the shallow water, herding fish into tighter and tighter concentrations, then lining up to drive the panicked schools into each other's open jaws. Individual animals lunge hard and fast, sometimes launching the front half of their bodies partially clear of the water to crash down onto densely packed prey from above. It is a repeating strategy that works, and they run it as long as the pools hold fish. When the rains return and the water spreads back across the floodplain, the fish disperse, and the opportunity closes. Soon enough, the jaguar's collar bolts corrode and fall away exactly as the biologist designed them to. He shakes his neck once. Done with it. The king is fully unburdened and he is absolutely starving. This time, it's capybaras. He smells them before the forest opens up enough to see them. He slips into the shadows of the river margin, his eyes locked on a family of capybaras grazing on the open beach. Capybaras are the largest rodents on Earth, essentially sheep-sized guinea pigs. Built low and barrel-shaped with eyes, ears, and nostrils, positioned high on the skull so they can monitor the environment while almost entirely submerged. Mature adults can reach 70 kilograms. They live in groups of up to 40, organized around one dominant male, a core of breeding females, and young kept to the interior of the group at all times. Their entire existence is structured around avoiding exactly what the jaguar has in mind. They stay close to water because they can dive and hold their breath for 5 minutes, long enough to wait out most threats. And they travel with company. Caracaras and cattle egrets move with capybara pods constantly, picking off parasites and insects stirred up by the rodent's feet. It is a mutually beneficial arrangement that has a significant side effect. The birds have faster eyes and quicker reactions than any mammal on the beach, and they will alert to a predator before the capybaras ever register the threat themselves. The jaguar uses his masterfully camouflaged coat to blend seamlessly into the dappled sunlight of the forest edge. He needs to get close enough to completely cut off their escape route to the water. But the capybaras have their highly effective early warning system. The flock of southern caracaras with razor-sharp vision are loitering around the rodent troop, picking off ticks and stirring up insects from the grass. The jaguar moves. He's close enough that the dash takes less than 2 seconds. A caracara screams. Every capybara on the beach explodes at once, 40 animals surging hard for the water. But he had already committed to one, and he was already close. He hits it before it takes 3 full strides, one forepaw down across its shoulders. The bite comes in hard and fast across the skull, breaking the bone instantly. It is over immediately. He drags it off the beach and into the vegetation where he can eat without being seen. Capybara this size will feed him for several days. He eats, sleeps beside the carcass, eats again. For a short window, the relentless pressure of the territory lifts. The wet season arrives soon anyway. Heavy rains, sometimes a meter or more, turn the plains into vast flood meadows. The grasslands flood within days. Water spreads across the landscape in every direction, converting the terrain into something that would disorient almost any other large predator. Not this one. He is one of the few big cats on Earth that genuinely loves the water, navigating the flooded forest with absolute ease. With the change in weather comes a major shift in the available menu. Once again, the caimans are everywhere along the new water margins, basking on every muddy edge, taking advantage of the sun while the floodwater is still cool. They're ectothermic, meaning that they cannot generate internal body heat, so every degree of performance comes from external warmth. In the morning, they lie flat and motionless on the bank. Sometimes they open their mouths wide to expose the blood vessel-rich tissue on the tongue to the air, venting excess heat. Sometimes they tilt their heads back to angle the skull toward direct sunlight, warming the brain faster than the rest of the body. To a casual observer, they look passive. They are the opposite of passive. Their reaction time, once triggered, is extraordinary for an animal of that mass, and they can hold their breath for well over an hour. Disturb one with a single wrong step, and it is already 3 meters underwater before the ripples start. The jaguar moves along the bank looking for his angle. He spots something in the shallows, a caiman floating with the current belly up. It has been dead for days, probably dislodged from an upstream bank by the rising water. Bloated, beginning to decay. The temptation is there, but he reads the river. The current here is running hard and deep. Dragging dead weight through that kind of flow risks being pulled under, and nothing about this carcass is worth drowning for. He steps back from the bank and keeps moving, leaving it to the vultures circling overhead. He needs quieter water and a live target he can control. He finds one, a caiman basking on a low mud shelf at the edge of a calm backwater. The animal is alert, its eyes tracking the margins with slow, deliberate movement. He's failed at this hunt before. He picks his approach along the bank carefully, testing each step before committing weight, watching the caiman's eyes. A caiman whose eyes are tracking you is a caiman about to move. He gets close enough. The caiman finally senses something wrong and lurches for the water, but the jaguar is already in the air. He lands squarely across the animal's back, both forepaws slamming down with his full body weight, and the bite arrives immediately at the base of the skull, right where the temporal bone meets the upper cervical vertebrae. His canines are longer and more robust than those of any other big cat, and he drives them down through armored scale, through bone, into the tissue beneath. The bite force he can generate at the canine tips, over 1,500 pounds per square inch, is the highest of any cat relative to body size. Enough concentrated trauma to the brainstem can disrupt the caiman's motor control entirely, causing it to lose consciousness before those jaws can come around. The body keeps fighting, but the jaguar does not release, not for a second. Every adjustment he makes through the next 2 minutes of struggle is organized around one thing: maintain the bite, keep the animal's head angled away, stay off those jaws. Then the caiman goes still. He holds it for another 30 seconds, making absolutely sure. Exhausted, soaked, panting hard against the humid air, he faces one last task. The carcass has to move before the blood scent draws competitors or scavengers. He drags the dead weight up the muddy bank with the kind of effort that requires exceptional forelimb strength for an animal his size. It takes the better part of 20 minutes to get it into the cover of the vegetation. Once he's inside the tree cover, he settles in and finally consumes his hard-won meal. The life of this animal is a relentless cycle of patrol, stalk, fail, rest, try again. That cycle is what the jaguar was built for, and inside an intact ecosystem, he runs it without serious opposition. But the ecosystem is not staying intact. In the mid-20th century, the global fur trade killed jaguars in the tens of thousands. Between the 1960s and the early 1970s, as many as 18,000 jaguars per year were being killed across South America for their pelts. International trade restrictions under CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, eventually shut the commercial skin market down. The killing for fur slowed. Everything else got worse. Every day, 150 acres of rainforest are cleared. Massive, ancient trees, each one supporting thousands of interconnected species, are logged for timber. The remaining forest is burned flat to make room for mining operations, infrastructure projects, and industrial agriculture. Each acre converted is one more acre a jaguar cannot use. As the dense jungle is carved up into isolated islands of green, human populations move into the clearings, bringing massive herds of domestic cattle with them. When a jaguar's natural prey species, like the tapirs, peccaries, and capybaras, are hunted out or displaced by deforestation, the big cats are left with an agonizing choice: to starve or hunt the slow, defenseless cattle grazing on the edges of their shrinking territories. When a cat takes livestock, local ranchers frequently take the law into their own hands, deploying illegal poisons or high-powered rifles to eliminate the predators. A rancher who loses calves to jaguar predation loses income. The retaliation is often immediate and lethal. The jaguar is shot, trapped, or poisoned. Sometimes the entire surrounding population of cats suffers for the actions of one. And because jaguar territories are so large, losing even one breeding male can destabilize an entire network of overlapping ranges. Jaguars are protected under international law. That protection has not stopped illegal trophy hunting. It has not stopped the poaching of jaguars for their teeth and bones, which have found active buyers in Southeast Asia, where they are used as substitutes for tiger parts in traditional medicine markets. Tiger populations have been depleted so severely that the demand has shifted to the jaguar. Conservationists are fighting back with what they have: camera trap networks, GPS satellite collars, genetic sampling, and population modeling are building an image of jaguar distribution and behavior that simply did not exist a generation ago. Researchers can now estimate how many individuals a given landscape can actually support, identify exactly where habitat connections between protected areas are breaking down, and pinpoint which ranching operations carry the highest rates of conflict with predators, so they can work with those ranchers on non-lethal deterrence before retaliation becomes the default. Conservation groups are also working to secure wildlife corridors, strips of connected habitat that allow animals to move between protected areas without crossing open farmland where they would be shot. Armed patrols try to hold back the poachers. The Pantanal remains the strongest jaguar stronghold on Earth, and its UNESCO World Heritage designation provides a layer of legal protection that most jaguar habitats elsewhere do not have. But even here, numbers are declining. Our male doesn't know any of this. He knows the riverbank under his paws, the scent map of his territory, the weight of a caiman under his jaws. He knows where the fish concentrate in the dry season and which shallow channels flood first when the rains return. He knows the alarm call of every bird in his patch. He has been shaped by millions of years of pressure into something that functions perfectly inside an intact ecosystem. Remove the ecosystem, and you lose what the jaguar holds together. The jaguar needs its rainforest, and the jungle, with everything it contains, desperately needs its king. If you want to keep exploring the deep secrets of these apex predators, smash that like button, follow our page, and subscribe to the channel right now to join our community of wildlife explorers. See you in the next one.